this next exercise is called a self-compassion break, and it's an exercise that is brief, but it's done in 3 different parts. You can do it any number of times a day, for 1 or 3 or 5 minutes. When you're feeling particularly stressed or pressured, perhaps a bit hurt or disappointed or worried. So self-compassion is a great antidote to self-criticism, which is something that we're all way too good at. So self-criticism tends to turn on that protective kind of threat cue part of the primitive brain, the amygdala, whereas self-compassion tends to turn on another part of the brain that's associated more with calming, with empathising, and also with a sense of joy and happiness. So to demonstrate this exercise, Eve will choose a situation of mild stress in her own life, one that would register only about 3 out of 10 on a stress scale. So when you begin with something like this, it's good to begin small rather than choosing something that's really big and stressful. So you would normally do this exercise on your own, just within your own mind, or you might do it in a written form, you might write it down. But for the purposes of teaching you how you might do this for yourself or with someone else, I'll be working with Eve with this one. So what I would like you to do, Eve, initially is just to imagine this stressful situation that you've got in your mind. Really imagine it in detail, almost as if you were there. So imagining what it looks like, imagining how it feels, imagining who's around, imagining your thoughts. So just try to really be there, just for a couple of moments. Okay. Now, what I'd like you to do now is to just, in a couple of sentences, describe what that situation is. Just really briefly what that stressful situation is for you.
I think for me it's coming into the hospital and making sure that I'm following all of the rules that we have to. So I'm used to getting my temperature taken now, so that's all good. But then where do I get another mask from to take off my street wear mask and to wear one in the hospital? What areas am I allowed to go into? And I can think of, the example I'm thinking of is meeting someone in the psych hub and being careful to meet them in reception so I didn't go onto the wards, but then needing to go onto the wards to get a mask, to get the correct mask, and just being conscious of, I was trying to avoid this, I didn't want to come in here because I want to be doing what we've been asked to do and follow the rules. So I'm just aware that I really often, wherever I go at the moment, it's like I don't want to be getting in people's space, I want them to feel comfortable and what's okay to do and what's not okay to do. So just kind of having to, just that sort of low-grade anxiety.
Yeah. And one that I imagine a lot of people could really relate to as well. So when you picture yourself in that situation and the stress of that situation, are there maybe 2 or 3 emotions that come up? What are the emotions? Just giving a single word to each of the emotions that come up for you when you picture yourself in that stressful situation.
I think the first emotion is anxiety, like is this okay, am I allowed to be doing this? And then the other emotion for me is that I don't know where it comes from, but I like to be a good girl. I don't like to break the rules, and so I worry about breaking the rules a bit. And another emotion is, I don't know if it's what the emotion word for it, but it feels like overthinking, like I'm having to be more prepared than I normally would.
Yeah.
I don't know, what would be the feeling word?
Yeah, so be more vigilant about getting it right. So if you had to choose one of those emotions, what would be the strongest for you? Would it be anxiety?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think they all are kind of anxiety.
Yeah, they are. Yeah. So what I'd like you to do and you would normally do this just in your own mind, but what I'd like you to do is just gently to name that and say, oh, here's anxiety. I'm noticing anxiety.
Do it out loud. Okay. So yeah, here's anxiety. I'm noticing anxiety.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. So with that emotion of anxiety, is there somewhere in your body? There doesn't have to be. Sometimes it's hard to locate an emotion in your body, but is there anywhere in your body, if you do a little scan of your body and tension points, where that anxiety is felt the most in your body?
Well, I kind of know when I said it out loud, it really quite hit me, and I swallowed. It was like, right, okay, there it is, and then now it's sort of down here. I can feel that. Just a tightness or a bit of an emotional kind of coil or something.
Yeah,
down
in the abdomen, especially. Yeah. Okay. So in this first part of this little exercise, I'd be encouraging Eve to just acknowledge that stress. So it might be saying just something as simple as, yeah, this is really tough. You know, this is hard. You know, I'm having a little bit of a struggle with this. Yeah, okay. Just to verbalise that.
Well, I think it is. I mean, it's actually, now that I've stopped to notice it, it feels a little bigger than what I first thought it was, and I think it's just an extra thing that I have to manage on top of just doing my job and trying to be in the right place at the right time and everything else.
Yeah.
It just feels like an extra thing I'm managing. Yeah, it's an added layer.
Yeah, yeah. So I'd just like you to say out loud, as you would to yourself, something that acknowledges that this is stressful. You know, this is really tough for me. This is a bit of a struggle for me.
So yeah, this is tough, and I'm finding it stressful, more stressful than I actually knew I was. Now that I've stopped and noticed, yeah, no, it is helpful.
Yeah, right. The second part of this exercise is reminding yourself that you're not alone in this experience. That it's part of common humanity, that there are many other people, many other women, many other social workers, nurses or whoever, mothers, parents, you know, we have many parts to ourselves, who would experience much the same thing as you're experiencing, some of the emotions that you're experiencing in this situation. So really reminding yourself that you're not alone. Because often when we're feeling really stressed or pressured, we can feel quite alone in that, and we can feel like we're the only one who's not coping with this, or who's not, you know, really smoothly moving from this building to that, etc. So this just isn't true. So sometimes just reminding yourself. So I'd encourage you just in maybe a sentence to think about who else might also be feeling this kind of stress and this kind of emotion that you are, and just in a few words remind yourself about that.
Yeah, I mean, I talk to lots of people, and lots of people experiencing, lots of staff, colleagues have talked about that as well, about just kind of knowing where they can go and where they can't go and what they're allowed to do, and feeling that they're carrying sort of a low level of anxiety with them through the day. Yeah, that's true.
So saying to yourself, I'm not alone in this.
I'm not alone. Yeah, I'm not alone in this.
Yeah, I share this with others.
I share this with others. Yeah.
Now I'd like you, it might seem a bit strange, but I'd like you to place your hand on that part of your body where you really felt that stress, and for Eve it was on her abdomen. And I want you to really intentionally see this hand as a hand that is full of kindness and warmth to yourself. So feel the warmth of your hand transferring into your body, and really imagine that you are transferring compassion, understanding and patience and kindness into yourself through your hand. You're almost holding yourself gently and kindly in this situation of stress. And now the third part of this exercise is for you to really think about what words of comfort or of encouragement, of perspective or reassurance that you need to hear right now. And if it's hard for you to think of that, you might think of a really close friend who perhaps is experiencing the same situation and feeling the same kind of emotions of stress in response to that. And you might think, well, what would be the words that I would say to her? What would be the gestures I would use to kind of provide comfort, reassurance, encouragement? And then turn those towards yourself. So feeling your hand, this hand of kindness on yourself, can you just very simply, in a couple of sentences, say to yourself what you need to hear in a really compassionate way? So it might be simple things like, no, I'm not alone in this. This is really tough, but I'm learning, and everybody is learning at the same time. Or, I actually think maybe I'm doing this better than I thought I was. Or, all you can do is your best. And you're actually doing a pretty good job. Whatever it is, say something to yourself that lets go of the self-criticism and brings the compassion to yourself.
I think that I'm doing the best I can, and there's something about no one's really out to get me. It's that no one wants to catch you out. That everyone's just doing the best they can, so am I, and that's kind of comforting.
Yeah. And as you say those words, I'd really encourage you to let them really land. Really allow those words to sink in, and perhaps to say them to yourself a couple of times over. Really allowing them to sink in, really believing them.
So I'm doing the best I can, and I'm not going to get into trouble, and that's all you can do is the best you can, and that's what I'm trying to do, and I'm not alone, and everyone's having to navigate this stuff.
Yeah. Fantastic. Great. And allowing your hand to drop down. So when we look at this little exercise, brain research shows us that noticing and naming our experience really dampens the activity of the amygdala, that kind of threat response, fight, flight, freeze response, and brings in the parasympathetic calming part of the nervous system, simply by noticing and naming your experience rather than let it just be swirling around inside you, which is a really interesting thing and a really useful thing to know. Also, placing your hand on your body is really useful too, for a couple of different reasons. One, it integrates the brain-body connection and response. And secondly, it stimulates the hormone oxytocin, which is a calming, connecting hormone that we have in our bodies. And what's interesting is the same happens for us when we actually place a hand on our own body. We don't need to have somebody around necessarily. And these exercises are really designed so that you can do things for yourself when there's not someone readily available. So when you place your hand kindly and with compassion on yourself, you stimulate oxytocin as well, which is calming again for your body. And that's what all of this is about. So doing this self-compassion break can really change the course of your day. So if you have something that goes wrong during your day, someone speaks to you in a difficult way, or you mess something up, or whatever it might be, it's easy to get on a roll of, this is going to be a crap day, or, negativity or self-criticism. But if you can catch yourself in moments like that, and instead of going down that track, take a minute or two to work through, oh, that hurts. Yeah, this is where I feel it. Bit of compassion. I'm not alone in this. Sometimes it's as simple as saying, give yourself a break. That's what I say to myself sometimes. Bridge, just give yourself a break. And doing that can actually change the course of the day as many times as you need to. And it may also be just a simple, very brief thing using compassionate touch, giving yourself a little hug. It might be thinking what's a soothing touch for you. It might be here, it might be on your arm, it might be on your face, it might be a little hug. So it might just be that in a few seconds I give myself a little hug and say, hey, no self-criticism, you're doing a good job. You don't have to be perfect. This is about being human. Just something like that. So one thing that you can add on to the self-compassion break, if you like, is a really useful self-compassion question. And that is, what would be most helpful for me right now? What do I need the most right now to help me in this stressful situation? It's something we don't often stop to ask ourselves. We're very focused on other people. But it can be a really good question to really reflect on, even just briefly. So it might be, is there somebody that I can, not necessarily relating to Eve's situation, it could be any situation. Is there someone that I can talk to? Do I need to take a bit of a break and do a few deep breaths somewhere? Do I need to go and have a cup of tea? Do I need to plan when I get home that I'm going to go for a nice long walk with my dog and perhaps have a warm bath? Just planning a little bit what would help you either right now or plan for the later on in the day, and really finding ways to make that happen for yourself.